The message came from space on a cold winter morning. It traveled 200 light-years to reach Earth, and when it arrived, everything changed for humanity. Daniel Harper held the device in his hands as he stood before the United Earth government. He was Earth's ambassador, a man who had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. His face was calm, but his hands shook slightly as he began to read the words aloud. The Galactic Council had sent their answer. After 3 years of waiting, after filling out thousands of forms and sending countless reports about human civilization, the galaxy had finally responded to Earth's request for membership. Daniel cleared his throat and read the message. The Council thanked humanity for their interest. They acknowledged that humans had built faster-than-light ships and established colonies on other worlds. They recognized that Earth had a unified government and had made contact with other alien species peacefully. But then came the word that made Daniel's stomach drop. The Council said no. The reason was simple, according to them. Humans were too aggressive, too violent, too unpredictable. Humanity had only been traveling through space for 73 years, which the Council considered far too short. They pointed to Earth's history of wars and conflicts. They mentioned nuclear weapons and other dangerous technologies that humans possessed. The Council's decision was final. They would not reconsider for at least 500 years. The room erupted in angry voices. Government officials from every nation shouted in disbelief and frustration. President Victoria Hayes had to slam her hand on the table 3 times before everyone became quiet again. She turned to Dr. Leonard Blake, who sat with his head in his hands. Leonard had dedicated 15 years of his life to preparing Earth's application. He had written reports, compiled data, and coordinated with hundreds of scientists and diplomats. Now all that work seemed worthless. Christine Morris, the Foreign Secretary, stood up with fire in her eyes. She could not believe what she had heard. Earth had met every requirement the Council had listed. Human ships explored space peacefully. Human colonies respected local environments and never harmed other species. Earth had even helped several alien civilizations with medical technology and disaster relief. But Leonard knew the truth. The requirements were never just about technology or behavior. The real issue was fear. The Galactic Council had existed for 10,000 years. They had grown comfortable and set in their ways. Humanity represented change, something new and unpredictable. The Council did not want to deal with a species they could not fully understand or control. Victoria looked around the room at all the disappointed faces. She had been elected president because she was decisive and bold. Now she needed to prove it. She made up her mind quickly. She announced that if the Council would not give Earth a seat, then Earth would take one anyway. Not through war or threats, but through presence, through persistence, through sheer stubborn determination. Daniel asked her what she meant. The Council had made it clear that they would not recognize any human delegation. They would not allow Earth to send representatives to their meetings. Victoria smiled, and it was not a warm smile. She said they would send just one person, one single diplomat who would go to the Council's headquarters and attend their meetings every single day. Someone who would stand there and remind the galaxy that humanity existed, whether they liked it or not. The search began immediately. Earth needed someone special for this impossible task. They needed a person who was brilliant but also patient, someone who could study alien cultures and understand complex politics. Most importantly, they needed someone who would never give up, no matter how long it took or how difficult it became. The selection committee reviewed hundreds of candidates. They looked at experienced diplomats and military officers. They considered scientists and politicians, but none of them seemed quite right for what Victoria had in mind. Then someone mentioned Claire Bennett. Claire was 34 years old and taught at the Luna Academy, a university built inside a crater on Earth's moon. She specialized in xenolinguistics, which meant she studied alien languages. Over the years, she had mastered 19 different non-human languages, each one completely different from anything spoken on Earth. But Claire was more than just a language expert. She had written several papers about diplomatic theory and how different species could communicate effectively. Her ideas were considered revolutionary by some and controversial by others. She argued that human persistence and refusal to quit were actually strengths, not weaknesses. When Victoria called her to Geneva, Claire thought she was in trouble. Perhaps one of her papers had offended someone important. She took a shuttle from the moon to Earth, nervous the entire way. Instead of punishment, Victoria offered her a job. The president explained the situation, about the council's rejection and Earth's plan to send one person to their headquarters. Claire sat in stunned silence for a moment. She asked Victoria to repeat what she had just said, certain she must have misunderstood. Victoria explained again. The Galactic Council met at a space station called Unity Prime. According to the rules of the Galactic Concordat, any spacefaring species could observe the Council's meetings, even if they were not members. The Council had denied Earth membership, but they could not legally prevent a human from attending as an observer. Victoria wanted Claire to go to Unity Prime and attend every single Council session. To sit in the observer's gallery day after day, reminding the thousands of alien species that humanity existed and deserved recognition. Claire looked at the president as if she had lost her mind. She asked how one person could possibly make a difference against an entire galaxy of alien species. Victoria leaned forward and spoke intensely. She said that Claire had spent years arguing that humanity's greatest strength was persistence, the ability to face impossible odds and refuse to surrender, the determination to keep trying even when failure seemed certain. Now Earth needed Claire to prove that her theories were correct. Claire walked to the window and looked down at the planet below. Earth looked so beautiful from up here, blue and green and full of life. But to the Galactic Council it was nothing, just another small world in a galaxy of billions. She thought about what it would mean to accept this assignment. She would be alone at Unity Prime, surrounded by alien species who had already rejected humanity. She would face hostility, indifference, and possibly even danger. She would have to attend boring meetings day after day, watching aliens discuss matters that Earth had no official say in. But she also thought about what it would mean to refuse. If no one stood up for Earth, if no one showed the galaxy that humans would not simply accept rejection and disappear, then what would that say about humanity? What would it say about her? Claire turned back to Victoria and asked when she would leave. The president smiled with relief and satisfaction. She told Claire that a ship was already being prepared. Within 2 weeks, Claire would depart for Unity Prime, beginning a journey that would change not just her own life, but the future of the entire human race. Claire returned to Luna Academy and began preparing. She had so much to learn in so little time. The Galactic Council had 12,000 member species, each with their own customs, histories, and political interests. She needed to understand as much as possible before she arrived. Her colleagues at the Academy thought she was insane. They told her she was throwing away her career for nothing. One person could not change the minds of an entire galactic government. It was impossible. But Claire had always believed that impossible just meant no one had succeeded yet. She packed her belongings, said goodbye to her friends, and prepared for the most important mission of her life. 2 weeks later, she boarded a transport ship called the Horizon. As Earth grew smaller behind her, Claire felt both terrified and determined. She had no idea if her mission would succeed. She had no guarantee that anyone would even notice her presence at Unity Prime, but she was going anyway. Because that was what humans did. They tried, even when success seemed impossible. They persisted even when everyone said they should quit. They reached for the stars even when the stars pushed back. The journey to Unity Prime would take 6 weeks. Claire intended to use every moment to prepare for the challenge ahead. The Horizon was not a luxury ship. It was designed for long-distance cargo transport, and Claire's quarters were small and plain. A bed, a desk, a small bathroom. Nothing more. But she did not care about comfort. She had work to do. Every morning, Claire woke at 5 and began studying. She reviewed files on different alien species, memorizing their languages, customs, and political positions. The Keltharians were efficient administrators who valued precision. The Drexiri were warriors who respected strength and directness. The Floridan were peaceful beings who communicated through color and light patterns. Each species was different. Each had their own way of thinking, their own values, their own reasons for being on the council. If Claire wanted to succeed at Unity Prime, she needed to understand them all. Captain Andrew Sullivan checked on her regularly. He was a veteran of the first contact incidents, the early days when humans first met alien species. Some of those encounters had gone badly. Andrew had scars to prove it. He brought Claire meals when she forgot to eat, which happened often. He told her stories about the different species she was studying, giving her practical advice that no file could contain. The Keltharians hated being interrupted, he said. The Drixari admired honesty, even brutal honesty. The Floridan were sensitive to emotional states and could sense deception. Claire absorbed everything like a sponge. She practiced alien greetings and studied diplomatic protocols. She watched recordings of council sessions, learning how debates were conducted and decisions were made. The galaxy's political landscape was incredibly complex. Alliances formed and dissolved. Species that were friends one decade became rivals the next. There were trade disputes, territorial disagreements, and philosophical conflicts that had lasted for thousands of years. At night, Claire lay awake wondering if she was really prepared for what awaited her. One human against thousands of aliens. What could she possibly accomplish? But then she remembered why she was doing this. Not for personal glory or recognition. For Earth, for humanity, for everyone back home who deserved a voice in galactic affairs. 6 weeks after leaving Earth, the horizon finally reached Unity Prime. Claire pressed her face against the window and stared in amazement. The station was massive, bigger than Earth's moon. It orbited a neutron star, using the star's incredible energy to power itself. Millions of beings from across the galaxy lived and worked there. The station looked like a small city floating in space. Towers and domes connected by tubes and bridges. Ships of every imaginable design came and went constantly. Lights of different colors glowed from windows and landing bays. This was meant to be a symbol of unity, a place where all species came together in peace. But Claire suspected it was more accurately a symbol of bureaucracy. The Galactic Council loved rules and procedures. Everything had to be done in the proper way, following the proper channels. Andrew accompanied her to the docking port. As they waited for clearance to disembark, he asked if she was sure about this. It was not too late to turn around and go home. Claire smiled and shook her head. It had been too late to turn around the moment the Council said no to Earth. The docking officer was a Keltharian. He had 6 limbs and multiple eyes that could look in different directions simultaneously. His species was known for following rules exactly, which made them excellent administrators but frustrating to deal with. The officer examined Claire's credentials carefully. 4 of his eyes focused on the documents while 2 others watched her face. He asked what her purpose was for visiting Unity Prime. Claire answered calmly. She was here as an observer for the Galactic Council proceedings. The Keltharian made a clicking sound that his translator turned into words. He pointed out that humanity had been denied council membership. Observer privileges were typically only given to candidate species. Claire had prepared for this. She explained that the Galactic Concordat, the set of laws that governed the Council, made no such distinction. Article 47, Section 12 clearly stated that any spacefaring species could observe Council proceedings. She was not here as a candidate. She was here as an observer, which was her legal right. The Keltharian's limbs twitched in what might have been annoyance. He consulted his computer terminal for several long minutes. Claire waited patiently, knowing that arguing or showing impatience would only make things worse. Finally, reluctantly, the officer granted her access. He gave her a small badge that would allow her into the public areas of Unity Prime, including the council chambers. Claire thanked him politely and entered the station. Walking through Unity Prime was like walking through a dream. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the corridors. Some walked on legs like humans did. Others floated or crawled or moved in ways Claire could not even describe. Some breathed oxygen like she did. Others wore environmental suits filled with different gases or liquids. The air was filled with sounds she had never heard before. Clicks, whistles, hums, and electronic tones. Her translator device worked overtime, converting alien speech into English. But some species communicated through methods that could not be translated at all. Claire followed the signs to the council chambers. The signs were in hundreds of languages, using different symbols and writing systems. Fortunately, English was among them. A small victory that humanity had won when they first made contact with the galactic community. The council chambers were enormous. A huge hemisphere with thousands of seats arranged in rising tiers. In the center was a platform where debates took place. Above everything hung a massive holographic display showing translations in real time. Claire found the observers' gallery, a section set aside for visitors and minor dignitaries. It was tucked away in an upper corner, far from the main action. The seats were uncomfortable and the view was not great, but it would have to do. She set up her small workstation, a portable computer with recording equipment. Then she sat down and waited for the session to begin. The council session started with routine business. A dispute between two species over mining rights in a distant system, a vote on new safety regulations for space travel, an update on a scientific research project studying ancient alien ruins. Claire listened to everything carefully, taking notes. She needed to understand how the council operated, the rhythms of their debates, the personalities of key members. No one paid any attention to her. She was just another being in the observer's gallery, one small human among thousands. Exactly as she had expected, the session lasted 4 hours. When it ended, Claire returned to her quarters on the horizon. The ship would stay docked at Unity Prime for the duration of her mission. That night, Andrew asked her how it went. Claire admitted it was boring. She had sat for 4 hours listening to debates about topics that did not concern Earth at all. Andrew laughed and told her to get used to it. That was what diplomacy usually looked like. Long periods of boredom interrupted by brief moments of excitement. The next day, Claire returned to the council chambers, and the day after that, and the day after that. By the end of the first week, a few beings in the nearby seats had started to notice her. A human attending every single day. That was unusual. Most observers came for a session or two, then left. But this human kept coming back. By the end of the second week, her presence had become a minor curiosity. Beings would glance at her, wondering what she was doing there. Some asked their neighbors if they knew who she was. Word began to spread slowly through the station. A human was attending council sessions despite Earth being rejected for membership. It was during the third week that someone finally spoke to her directly. His name was Krell, and he was a Drexari ambassador. The Drexari were large reptilian beings with scales like armor and eyes like a predator. They had earned their council seat through military might and strategic intelligence. They were warriors through and through. Krell approached Claire during a break between sessions. He towered over her, easily twice her size. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. He said simply that she was the human. He asked why she came here every day when her species had been rejected. Claire met his eyes without flinching. She explained that rejection did not make humanity disappear. Earth existed. Humans had a voice, and they deserved to be heard whether the council wanted to listen or not. Krell studied her with his cold, calculating eyes. He told her she was wasting her time. The council's decision would not change. Claire smiled slightly. Then she would waste her time productively. Krell made a sound that might have been laughter. It was harsh and loud, drawing attention from others nearby. He said she was either very brave or very foolish. Claire admitted she was probably both. The warrior regarded her with what might have been respect. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Claire alone again. But something had changed. She had spoken to a council member. She had made her presence known. It was a small step, but it was a step forward. Claire returned to her seat and prepared for the afternoon session. She had a long way to go, but for the first time since arriving at Unity Prime, she felt a small spark of hope. The galaxy was starting to notice that humanity would not simply go away. Preparing for the review of judgment consumed the next 3 months of Claire's life. She worked 18 hours a day, sometimes more. Sleep became a luxury she could rarely afford. Dr. Leonard Blake arrived from Earth in person, bringing with him a team of specialists. Legal experts who understood the Concordate's complex laws, scientists who could present data about human achievements, historians who could compare humanity's development to other species. They set up a temporary office in a rented space on Unity Prime. The walls were soon covered with charts, graphs, and documents. Leonard coordinated everything while Claire focused on building the core argument. The Council had rejected Earth based on 3 main charges. First, that humans were excessively aggressive and violent. Second, that human civilization was politically unstable. Third, that humanity had not been a spacefaring species long enough to demonstrate wisdom and maturity. Claire needed to prove each charge was either false or unfairly applied. It would not be easy. The Council had based their decision on humanity's actual history, and that history was complicated. Leonard helped Claire understand the legal framework. A review of judgment was not a simple appeal. It was a formal challenge to the Council's decision-making process. Claire would have to prove that the Council had either made a factual error or had applied their standards unfairly. The hearing would take place in the Grand Forum, a ceremonial chamber used only for the most important decisions. Every Council member would attend. The entire galaxy would be watching. If Claire failed, Earth might not get another chance for centuries. The pressure was immense. Claire had nightmares about standing before the Council and forgetting everything she wanted to say. She worried about making a mistake that would doom humanity's chances forever. But Leonard reminded her why she had been chosen. She was brilliant, yes. She understood alien cultures better than almost anyone. But most importantly, she did not give up. When things got difficult, she worked harder. When obstacles appeared, she found ways around them. The date was set. In 2 weeks, the review of judgment would begin. Claire spent those final days rehearsing her arguments. Leonard and his team acted as the opposition, challenging every point she made. They were harsh and critical, but it was necessary. Claire needed to be ready for anything. The night before the hearing, Claire could not sleep at all. She walked through the quiet corridors of Unity Prime, thinking about what tomorrow would bring. She thought about Earth, about all the people who were counting on her. She thought about future generations of humans who deserved to explore the galaxy without restrictions. She thought about the responsibility she carried. Captain Andrew found her standing by a viewing window, staring out at the stars. He stood beside her silently for a while. He told her that whatever happened tomorrow, she had already accomplished something remarkable. She had made the galaxy notice humanity. She had forced them to reconsider their assumptions. That was more than anyone else had done. Claire thanked him but said it was not enough. She needed to win, Andrew smiled. He said that was the human spirit talking. Never satisfied with just trying, always needing to win. Maybe that was exactly what the Council needed to see. The morning arrived too quickly. Claire put on her formal diplomatic clothing, a simple but elegant suit in earth blue. She reviewed her notes one final time. Though she had already memorized everything, Leonard and his team accompanied her to the Grand Forum. The chamber was even more impressive than the regular council chambers. It was ancient, built thousands of years ago. The walls were decorated with symbols representing every member species. The room was packed. Every seat was filled. Thousands of beings had come to witness this historic event. The rejection of a species was common enough, but a review of judgment was rare. Many of those present had never seen one before. Claire walked to the center of the chamber, where a platform waited. She felt very small and alone. The hierarch entered, accompanied by the council's senior members. They took their positions in the highest tier of seats. The ancient being's presence commanded respect from everyone in the room. He called the session to order. His voice echoed through the chamber, translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. He announced that the review of judgment had been called to examine the decision to deny membership to humanity. Ambassador Krell of the Drixari would present the challenge. High Chancellor Vorn of the Collective would defend the Council's decision. Vorn was Claire's opponent. The Collective was a hive-mind species, millions of individuals sharing one consciousness. Vorn represented their combined intelligence. He would be a formidable adversary. Krell stood first. The massive Drexari warrior spoke with conviction. He argued that the Council's decision had been based on incomplete data and prejudice. Humanity had been judged not by their actions but by fear of their potential. He yielded the floor to Claire. She approached the central platform, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. But when she spoke, her voice was clear and steady. She addressed the hierarch and the council with respect. She said she was not here to beg for acceptance. She was here to demand fairness. The charges against humanity were based on assumptions, not evidence. Claire activated a holographic display showing Earth's history since achieving faster-than-light travel. She addressed the first charge directly. The council called humans excessively aggressive. But in 73 years of space travel, humanity had not started a single war with another species. Humans had defended themselves when attacked, but they had never been the aggressors. Vorn interrupted smoothly. He pointed out that humanity's own history contradicted her claim. Humans had spent thousands of years in constant warfare on their home planet. Millions had died in conflicts over resources, ideology, and territory. Claire was ready for this. She acknowledged that humanity's past included violence, but so did every species in the Council. She brought up specific examples. The Drixari had fought wars that destroyed entire star systems. The Floridan had a civil war lasting 3 centuries. The Keltharians had exterminated 2 rival species before developing spaceflight. Yet all of them had earned council seats. Why? Because they had demonstrated growth. They had learned from their mistakes. They had changed. Claire displayed comparative data showing humanity's development alongside other species. Earth had achieved global unity faster than 90% of current council members. Humans had established peaceful colonies on 12 worlds without displacing any native species. Humanity had offered technology and assistance to 7 different civilizations, asking nothing in return. The display shifted to show human achievements. The cure for the Vexian plague, a disease that had killed millions before human doctors found a solution. The terraforming assistance provided to struggling Orithian colonies. The rescue of 300 Keltharian miners trapped in a collapsed asteroid mine. Claire addressed the second charge. The Council claimed humans were politically unstable, but Earth had maintained a unified government for 40 years. Many species had achieved less before gaining Council membership. She moved to the third charge. That humanity lacked sufficient time as a spacefaring civilization. Claire argued that time alone was not the same as wisdom. Humans had packed more growth and learning into 73 years than some species achieved in 500. Vorn responded calmly. His arguments were logical and well-structured. He said that eloquence could not hide the fundamental issue. Humanity was unpredictable. Humans possessed nuclear weapons, biological weapons, and advanced technology. The Council's responsibility was maintaining galactic peace. Admitting a volatile species like humanity was a risk the galaxy could not afford. Claire had anticipated this argument. She acknowledged that humans had weapons, but so did every species. Every civilization in the galaxy had the capacity for destruction. The question was not whether a species had power, but how they chose to use it, and humanity had chosen repeatedly to use power responsibly. When human colonies found primitive civilizations, they protected them rather than exploiting them. When conflicts arose, humans sought diplomatic solutions first. When other species needed help, humans provided it without demanding payment. Claire paused and looked around the chamber at thousands of watching faces. She said that the Council could deny Earth membership. They could ignore humanity. They could pretend humans did not exist, but humanity would not disappear. Humans would not stop growing. They would not stop exploring. They would not stop reaching for the stars. The only question was whether the Council wanted humanity inside, bound by concordant rules and contributing to galactic goals. Or outside, forced to make their own way in a galaxy that had rejected them. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Claire had just presented an uncomfortable truth. Humanity would be a force in galactic affairs whether the Council liked it or not. Better to have them as allies than as unpredictable outsiders. The hierarch called for silence. He announced that the Council would deliberate through the night. The review of judgment would conclude tomorrow with their decision. Claire left the platform exhausted. Leonard met her with pride in his eyes. He told her she had been magnificent, but Claire knew her performance did not matter if the Council voted against her. Weeks turned into months at Unity Prime. Claire fell into a routine that became as natural as breathing. Wake up early, review the day's agenda, attend the Council session, take notes, study the patterns of debate and voting. Every single day without fail. The station's inhabitants began to recognize her. The human who never missed a session. Some found her persistence admirable. Others thought she was annoying, a constant reminder of an uncomfortable decision the Council had made. A few seemed genuinely curious about what she hoped to accomplish. Claire learned the names of hundreds of Council members. She memorized their voting patterns and understood their political alliances. She could predict with surprising accuracy how most debates would go before they even started. The Keltharian delegation always voted for stricter regulations and more bureaucratic oversight. The Drixari favored military strength and direct action. The Floridan pushed for environmental protection and peaceful solutions. The Vaxan, beings made of pure energy, focused on technological advancement and resource acquisition. Each species had its own agenda, its own goals. The council was not really unified at all. It was a collection of competing interests held together by rules and traditions. Claire started to see opportunities, places where Earth's interests aligned with other species, resources that humanity could offer, problems that human technology might solve. She took careful notes on everything, sending regular reports back to Earth. President Victoria was pleased with the information Claire provided. Even if Earth had no official voice on the council, understanding galactic politics was valuable. Knowledge was power, and Claire was gathering knowledge every day. But Claire wanted more than just information. She wanted action. She wanted the council to acknowledge Earth's existence, to admit they had made a mistake in rejecting humanity. The opportunity came 3 months after she arrived at Unity Prime. The council was debating resource rights in the Outer Rim territories, a vast region of space far from the galactic core. A coalition of mining corporations, backed by several powerful species, wanted exclusive rights to asteroid fields rich in rare minerals. Claire listened as the Vaxxan representative made their case. The Vaxxan were always interested in resources for their technology. The representative argued that these territories were unclaimed by any council member species. Therefore, according to the Concordate's resource-sharing protocols, they should fall under council jurisdiction and be allocated to whoever could use them most efficiently. Several other species voiced their support. The mining companies would pay fees to the council. Everyone would benefit. It seemed like a straightforward decision, but Claire knew something they did not know or chose to ignore. Those asteroid fields were not unclaimed. Humanity had been mining them for 12 years. Small operations, true, but legitimate and documented. Earth had established territorial claims under the first contact provisions of the Concordate. She sat in the observer's gallery, her heart pounding. If she remained silent, Earth would lose access to resources that were critical for human colonies. But if she spoke, she would be breaking an unwritten rule. Observers were expected to watch silently, not participate in debates. Claire made her decision. She stood up. Her voice rang out clearly across the chamber. She requested a point of clarification. The enormous room fell silent. Thousands of eyes, sensors, and other organs turned toward her. The sudden attention was overwhelming, but Claire forced herself to remain calm. The council speaker was called the Hierarch. He belonged to a species known as the Eternal, ancient beings who had guided the council for 3,000 years. He looked at Claire with what might have been surprise. He stated that the observer gallery did not have speaking privileges. Claire had prepared for this moment. She cited the Concordate from memory. Article 91, Section 4 granted any present party the right to clarify factual inaccuracies. She was not trying to debate or argue. She was simply correcting an error. The Hierarch consulted his own records. The chamber waited in tense silence. After what felt like an eternity, the ancient being inclined his head slightly. He told Claire she could speak, but she should be brief. Claire took a deep breath. She explained that the Vaxxan representative had stated these territories were unclaimed by any council member species. That statement was technically accurate. However, humanity had established mining operations in 3 of the disputed asteroid fields for the past 12 years. Humans might not be council members, but they were a legitimate spacefaring civilization with documented territorial claims, she continued, citing another section of the Concordate. Section 19 specifically stated that established territorial claims must be respected, regardless of council membership status. The law was designed to protect non-member species from being exploited by the council's powerful members. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Vaxxan representative pulsed with angry red light, their energy form crackling with irritation. They argued this was absurd. Humans had no standing in the council. Their claims should not be recognized. But Claire stood her ground. She asked a simple question. If humans had no standing, then why did the Concordate include provisions specifically designed to protect non-member species? Why did those laws exist if not to be enforced? Other council members began arguing among themselves. Some agreed with Claire. Others sided with the Vaxxan. The debate became heated, with multiple species shouting to be heard. The Hierarch raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet down. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. He said that the human had made a valid point. The matter required further investigation. He could not, in good conscience, allow a vote to proceed when there was legitimate doubt about the legal status of the territories in question. The vote was postponed until the claims could be verified. Claire sat down, her legs suddenly weak. She had done it. She had forced the Galactic Council to acknowledge Earth's existence, not as a rejected applicant, but as an equal party with legitimate rights under galactic law. As the session ended, Claire felt the weight of thousands of stares. Some looked at her with respect, others with anger, a few with calculation, already thinking about how to use this development to their advantage. That evening, Claire returned to her quarters on the horizon to find security forces waiting outside her door. Her heart raced. Had she gone too far? Were they here to arrest her? But Captain Andrew stood with them, looking calm. He told her she had visitors. An official delegation had come to see her. Ambassador Krell led the group, along with representatives from about a dozen other species. The Drexari warrior looked at Claire with his predatory eyes. He told her that what she had done was dangerous. She had made enemies today. Powerful species who did not appreciate being challenged by a human. Claire met his gaze steadily. She said she had made her point. Earth would not be ignored. A Floridan ambassador spoke next. Her name was Lyra, and her body glowed with soft blue and green light. She said that some council members believed the rejection of humanity had been a mistake. Claire's presence at Unity Prime, her persistence, demonstrated something the council had not seen in a long time. Perhaps it was courage. Perhaps it was stubbornness. But it was impressive nonetheless, Krell continued. He asked Claire what she intended to do next. She had their attention now. How would she use it? Claire had been thinking about this for months. She told them she intended to challenge the council's decision formally. The Concordat allowed for a review of judgment if sufficient evidence of error could be presented. The Floridan's light dimmed slightly, a sign of concern. She pointed out that such a review had not been done in 400 years. It was an extremely rare procedure, and it required a sponsor. A current council member would have to agree to present Earth's case. Claire nodded. She understood. She said she would find a sponsor, no matter how long it took. Krell made that harsh sound that served as Drixari laughter. He asked if Claire truly would not give up. Claire asked him a question in return. If his species had been denied their rightful place on the council, would he simply accept it and go home? Would he surrender without a fight? The warrior's eyes gleamed. He said no. He would not surrender. Never. There was a long moment of silence as Krell considered something. Then he nodded slowly, decisively. He announced that the Drixari would sponsor Earth's review of judgment. He said it was time to see if humans were as formidable in debate as they claimed to be in battle. Claire felt a surge of emotion. Relief, gratitude, excitement, fear, all mixed together. She thanked Krell, her voice thick with feeling. The Drixari waved away her thanks. He said she should not thank him yet. A review of judgment was not easy. She would have to prove beyond doubt that the council had made an error. She would have to argue her case before the entire galactic community, and she would face opposition from those who wanted humanity to remain excluded. Claire straightened her shoulders. She said she was ready. Krell studied her one more time. Then he turned to leave, his delegation following. At the door, he paused and looked back. He told Claire that she reminded him of the young warriors in his own species, the ones who refused to accept defeat, who kept fighting even when victory seemed impossible. He said those warriors either died young or became legends. Claire did not sleep at all that night. She paced her small quarters aboard the horizon, replaying every moment of the hearing in her mind. Had she said enough? Had she been too aggressive? Too passive? Should she have emphasized different points? Captain Andrew found her at dawn, still awake and exhausted. He brought her breakfast, though she could barely eat. Her stomach was twisted in knots. He told her she had done everything possible. Now the decision was in the council's hands. She had to trust that her words had made a difference. But Claire found it hard to trust. She had seen the faces in the Grand Forum yesterday. Some had looked convinced by her arguments. Others had seemed hostile, unwilling to change their minds regardless of what she said. Leonard arrived with his team. They had spent the night monitoring communications, trying to gauge how the council might vote. The results were mixed. Some species were definitely leaning toward approval. Others remained firmly opposed. Many were undecided. The vote would be close. perhaps too close. They made their way to the grand forum together. The chamber was even more crowded than yesterday. Word had spread throughout Unity Prime. Everyone wanted to witness the outcome of this historic review. Claire took her place beside Krell. The Drexari warrior nodded to her with what might have been encouragement. He told her that regardless of the outcome, she had fought well. Her species should be proud, but Claire did not want pride. She wanted victory. The hierarch entered with the senior council members. The ancient being took his position and called for silence. The chamber immediately quieted. The tension was palpable. He announced that the council had deliberated throughout the night. The review of judgment had been thorough and comprehensive. Now it was time to vote. The holographic display activated, showing thousands of council members. Each one would cast their vote. Green for approval of humanity's membership, red for denial, yellow for abstention. But before the voting began, the hierarch spoke again. His words surprised everyone. He said that in 10,000 years of guiding the Galactic Council, the Eternal had prided themselves on wisdom, fairness, and justice. Yet Claire Bennett had shown them something they had forgotten. She had demonstrated courage. Not the courage of warriors or conquerors, but the courage of persistence, the courage to stand alone and speak truth to power. The hierarch continued. Humanity was young, yes. They were unpredictable, yes. But they were also resilient, innovative, and driven by an indomitable will to improve themselves. These were not weaknesses. These were strengths. He said that perhaps, after 10,000 years of comfortable stability, the council needed such strength. Then the ancient being cast his vote. Green. Approval. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The hierarch rarely voted directly. His role was to guide and moderate, not to take sides. But today he had made his position clear. The voting began. Lights flickered across the holographic display. Green, red, yellow. Green, red, yellow. Each vote represented a species, a world, a civilization making a choice about humanity's future. The Drexari voted green. Approval. The Floridan voted green. Approval. The Keltharian hesitated, their delegation discussing among themselves. Then they voted green. Approval, but the Vaxen voted red. Denial. The collective voted red. Denial. Major industrial powers, worried about human competition for resources, voted red. Denial. Claire watched the tally climb with agonizing slowness. Her hands gripped the railing in front of her so tightly, her knuckles turned white. The threshold for approval was 60%. Out of 12,000 member species, Earth needed 7,200 votes. The numbers climbed. 6,000, 6,500, 7,000, 7,100, 7,150, 7,190. Claire's heart pounded. They were so close. Just 10 more votes. Just 10 more species who believed humanity deserved a chance. 7,195. 7,197. 7,198. The voting stopped. The final tally appeared. 7,198 votes for approval. 4,876 votes for denial. 1,926 abstentions. 4 votes short. They were 4 votes short of the threshold. Claire felt the world collapse around her. After everything, after months of persistence, after proving humanity's worth, after the hierarch himself had voted in their favor, they had failed by 4 votes. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Some species seemed relieved, others disappointed. But the decision appeared final. Then something unexpected happened. A small, quiet voice requested permission to speak. It belonged to a Pelthori representative. The Pelthori were a timid species, rarely speaking in council sessions. They preferred to vote silently and avoid attention. The hierarch granted permission, clearly surprised. The Pelthori spoke in a trembling voice. She said that she had voted to abstain. She had been afraid of change, afraid of the unknown, afraid of what humanity might become. But Claire Bennett had taught her something important. Fear was not a good reason to deny justice. The human had stood alone against the entire galaxy and refused to surrender. That took courage the Pelthori could only admire. She announced that the Pelthori wished to change their vote from abstention to approval. Another voice spoke up, a Sarnathi representative. They had also abstained out of fear and uncertainty. but seeing the Pelthori speak with such courage inspired them. The Sarnathi changed their vote to approval as well. Then another species spoke, and another, and another. 5 species changed their votes from abstention or denial to approval. More than enough. The final tally updated, 7,203 votes for approval. The chamber exploded in noise. Some celebrated, some protested, but the decision had been made. By the rules of the council, a vote could be changed until the hierarch declared the result final. And he had not done so yet. The hierarch raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet down. When he finally spoke, his voice carried weight and solemnity. He declared that by the power vested in the Galactic Council, humanity was hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Concordat. He said that this day would be recorded in history. The day when the species of Earth took their rightful place among the stars. Claire stood there, unable to move. Tears streamed down her face. She could barely process what had just happened. After months of fighting, after standing alone day after day, after facing rejection and hostility and doubt, they had won. Krell placed a massive hand on her shoulder. He told her she had done well. Very well indeed. Messages from Earth flooded Claire's communication device. President Victoria's face appeared on the screen, tears in her eyes as well. She said that Claire had achieved the impossible. She had given humanity its voice Claire could barely speak. She managed to say that this victory belonged to everyone. Every human who had refused to accept no for an answer. Every person on Earth who believed they deserved a place in the galaxy. The celebrations lasted for days. Humanity's first official act as a council member was to propose reforms to the membership evaluation process. No other species should face the arbitrary rejection that Earth had endured. The proposal passed with strong support. Claire's persistence had not only won Earth a seat, it had changed the council itself. In the weeks that followed, Claire was offered the position of Earth's first official ambassador to the Galactic Council. She accepted, knowing that her work was far from over. Gaining membership was just the beginning. Now came the hard part of actually participating in galactic governance. But Claire was ready. She had proven that one person could stand against impossible odds and win. She had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength was not weapons or technology, but the simple refusal to give up. Leonard returned to Earth, proud of what they had accomplished together. Captain Andrew continued his service, occasionally visiting Unity Prime to check on Claire. Ambassador Krell became an unlikely friend. The Drexari warrior respected strength, and Claire had demonstrated strength of will that impressed even his warrior culture. Lyra the Floridan became another ally, helping Claire navigate the complex social dynamics of the Council. Life at Unity Prime was busy and challenging. Claire attended sessions, negotiated treaties, built alliances, and worked to advance Earth's interests. She made mistakes sometimes, but she learned from them. Years passed. Claire grew from a nervous diplomat into a seasoned ambassador. She trained other humans to serve in the galactic government. She mentored young diplomats from newly contacted species who faced their own challenges. But she never forgot those early months. Standing alone in the observer's gallery, being ignored by thousands of beings, fighting for recognition one day at a time. Those experiences had shaped her. They had taught her that persistence could overcome almost any obstacle. That one voice, speaking with conviction, could change minds. That impossible just meant nobody had succeeded yet. Claire Bennett had come to Unity Prime as one human against the galaxy. She had left as the ambassador who gave humanity its voice, and in the process she had proven something important, not just to the Galactic Council but to every human watching from Earth. That no matter how long the odds, no matter how difficult the challenge,